Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss Dream Children, a Reverie by Charles Lamb. So Charles Lamb, who was considered to be a romantic essayist or romantic writer, that means he belonged to the age of romantics, romantic age, as we have different ages in literature. We have classified the works and different categories in different ages, like beginning from old or Anglo-Saxon age to medieval, middle, and then say Renaissance, then neoclassical, and all these. So the age that Charles Lamb belonged to was Romantic age. He was an essayist. He is, of course, better known and well known as an essayist, and he wrote by the name of Elia, and that was the pseudonym that he used in his essays. And his collection of essays, which was published in 2 volumes, like 2 collections were published, I should say. So the first was Essays of Elia, published in 1828, and then the second collection was published in 1833, and he died in 1834. Yes, the total lifespan, like born in 1775 and died in 1834. So Elia is actually the pen name that he used for himself, and in reality Elia was a co-worker of Charles Lamb. So he used that name for himself in his essays, and all his essays are autobiographical essays, like he himself is there. He tells about himself, his family members, his relatives, his familiar people in the essays. And this essay is also not an exception to that. And there is a particular, we can say, particular quality in his essays, and the quality is like they are sometimes they are quite cogent and sometimes they are quite rambling. It means sometimes they appear to be very convincing, and sometimes it is like plot is all loosely connected things, and which actually confuses and bewilders the reader. He uses lots of parentheses in his essays. That too makes his essays quite complex, and here too he has done that. And if we talk of the themes of his essays, so he includes imagination, nostalgia, conceit, extended comparisons in his essays. He writes on kinship. He has a certain view about religiosity as well, and sometimes quite tragic, and sometimes there is pathos. Memory also plays a vital role in his essays. So these are the kind of themes that he explored in his essays. And here too, in this particular one, it begins on a lighter note, say, and ends on a tragic note. So how he begins, moreover, he actually had a failed love affair with a lady named Anne Simmons. So that too comes out here in this essay, and there are certain characters which are from his own family which have been used here in this essay. So before beginning or coming to the story, I'll tell you a bit about the title as well. Dream Children, a Reverie. So Reverie is a daydream. It means he is dreaming. This is not real, it's all in imagination. So he is using imaginary characters here in this essay. And dream children, it means the children that he has imagined, or the characters that he has used here, especially the 2 children, they are all imaginary, they were only in his dream, they were not real. Actually, he wanted to marry and wanted to have children, but he couldn't do that. He had to take care of his ailing sister Mary, who was subjected to fits of madness. So he didn't marry in his life. All his life he took care of his sister Mary. So that comes out in this essay as well. So now let's see how he begins this essay. So in his essays, humor is also there. We can see his love for humor, or his a natural instinct for humor can also be found in his essays. Though here not too much of that is evident, but okay, thread somewhere we can observe and find here. So let's see now how he or what he conveys here in this story. So he begins it like the children love to listen to stories, and they love to listen about or know about their grandparents, their grandmother, their grandfather, and they love imagining about their life and times and how they were and all. So this is how this story or this essay begins, that my children, it means Charles Lamb's, not my actually. So Charles Lamb's children, they actually ask him to tell a story or tell him about the grandparents, his grandmother and all. So then he starts telling them about his grandmother. That means the great grandmother of those children, that is Field. So here I have mentioned the characters used in this essay. Elia, as I explained you, the writer himself, Charles Lamb, he wrote by this pen name, pseudonym. Alice is the lady whom he loved, with whom he had a failed love affair. But here this Alice is actually that imaginary child of Charles Lamb, a girl child. John is again a child of Charles Lamb, an imaginary child. So these two are dream children, as the title suggests. So these are the two dream children in this essay. Then John Lamb. So John Lamb, John L, as he was used to give acronyms for the characters or write short names of the characters in his stories, not the real names or the complete names. So he uses John L for his brother, his elder brother, John Lamb actually. And then Field was his grandmother, and Bridget actually his real sister Mary, whom I said was subjected to fits of madness. And Bartram was the one whom Alice in his beloved married. So Bartram was the one. So these are the characters in this essay. So it begins with Field, the grandmother. So he tells the children about grandmother, that she was a housekeeper of a house in Hertfordshire, that is Blacksfair House, as mentioned in this essay, that she was a housekeeper. Blacksfair House, that's the name. So she was a housekeeper of Blacksfair House in Hertfordshire, Norfolk, and that is the scene of this essay, that is the scene of the story. So now right in the beginning he mentions about the Ballad of the children who died in the woods. He mentions about the children in the woods, the ballad on them. So who are the two children actually? So a gentleman bequeathed, it means divided his property between his two children, one his infant son and one his infant daughter, and just put them under the care of his younger brother. Now the younger brother, who was quite greedy and cruel, he appointed two goons to kill those two children because he wanted to have the property. So the goons actually took the children into a forest, and there what happened, one of the goons just had a cold feet. That means he didn't have the heart to kill those children, and so what he did, he killed, instead of killing those children, he killed one of his companions. And what the children were left there in the forest to die. The children died there, and the redbreast, the robin bird actually, so they covered their bodies with the leaves. So this is about those children who died in the woods. And this story till those robin birds, whatever they did. So this story is all carved in a wood in that house and is there above the chimney piece, until a person, a gentleman, came and just demolished or destroyed that to have a fancy one of marble. Like he replaced that wooden one, that chimney piece of wood, with a marble chimney piece, a more fashionable and fancy one. So until then it was there. So this is how he begins the story. Then he tells the children about the grandmother, that she was quite a devotional and religious lady. She was loved by all. She was respected by all in the neighborhood. And though she was not, of course, the mistress of the house, but yes, it was like that, because the owner of the house had committed that house to her, or had given that house under her possession and custody, and she would take care of all those things. Actually, what the real owner shifted to a newer and more fashionable mansion or a house in the town. So the old one was given in the custody or possession of the grandmother Field, who was to take care of that. And they even took away some of the old furniture and things with them, and it was like just robbing, say, the abbey graves of some old graves. So listening to that, it means like they took the old things from some of the old things from that house as well, which was quite a foolish thing to do, as he wanted to suggest. And the reaction of John, of course, that imaginary child, appeared like that, that he also thought this to be quite a foolish act to carry all those tarnished things to the new house. So that's how it appears. Then he again talks of the grandmother, tells them about the grandmother, that when she died there was a concourse of people. It means she was so loved and respected by all that in her funeral there were people from the neighborhood, the poor, some gentry was also there, the people from neighboring places were also there to follow her dead body to the graveyard or in her funeral. So that it shows the respect given to her by the people. So this is what he narrates and tells about the grandmother to the children. And then he says, in her youthful days, she was a good dancer. She was known to be a great dancer. Listening to this, Alice actually her legs moved a bit involuntarily, like automatically, as if like listening to that she wanted to dance or so. Then he had a grave look on his face and she stopped that moment and all. Then he says that she was such a lively person until cancer took over her, and she actually had cancer, though that cancer crippled her physically, but it could not subdue and suppress her spirit. She was that enthusiastic and high-spirited lady. She knew the Testament and psalteries all by heart. So Testament is actually what Testament is about. That Bible is divided in two parts, we can say two books. One is Old Testament and the other is New Testament. There are total 66 books in Bible. So one part is the Old Testament, and it comprises 39 books. It means the 3/4 part of Bible is the Old Testament, which tells us about the origin of life on this planet and the different prophecies made in that about God and all. And in the New Testament, it's all about Jesus Christ and his teachings and the prophecies made in Old Testament coming true. So in the second part, that means the New Testament, is about that. So he says that she knew that testament, she knew different psalms all by heart. She was such a religious lady, she was such a devotional lady. That's how he talks of the grandmother. And then she used to sleep in a lawn hall there, and she would say that at midnight there would be the apparition of two children gliding on the staircase railing and all, but they actually are quite innocent and they would not harm her at all. They would not do any mischief or so. So that's what she would say about the apparition. Apparition is kind of, we can say, ghost, the spirits. So she would see those apparitions, but they would not disturb her or harm her at all. So Lamb said that when he would listen to this, or when grandmother would tell him about this, he would be all frightened. And though there was a maid to sleep with him, but yes, he would definitely be frightened. And he said that though he was not as even half as good or religious as his grandmother, but the apparitions never disturbed him, or say he never saw those apparitions. Then he describes about the big house that as it was. There was a big hall, there were empty rooms, all very big, and he would just stroll around in those houses and halls, and there were say bursts of Caesars, 12 bursts, as there were 12 Caesars from Julius Caesar to Domitian Caesar. There were 12 Caesars who ruled Rome. So there were the bursts of Caesar there, all those 12 Caesars, and he would just gaze at those bursts until they come to life. Like he would get totally lost or immersed in that, all wrapped in those imaginations, and then he would enjoy those say panels, old wooden panels and such. He would look at them. Even the tapestries, we can say the wall hangings, the embroidered cloth pieces which are used as hangings or even to cover the things. So he would enjoy or watch all of them, he would enjoy all that. Then there were fruits like nectarine and peaches, though they were forbidden fruits for them until except now and then. And moreover, they were perhaps not of interest to these children, because they were more interested in strolling and roaming about that big house and all. And then he also describes about the orangery, the garden where he would lay basking or sunning himself, and the fish pond where there would be dace and pike, different varieties of fish like moving to and fro or just idly hanging in the middle of water. He would enjoy all that. So this is how he describes a part of the house and their activities. And he, as he said in this essay, that he would spend his childhood there, or say especially the holidays, not the whole childhood, his holidays with his grandmother in that house. So he would spend that with his grandmother, as he mentioned here. Then now he starts describing or telling them about his elder brother John Lamb. So when he was narrating or telling them about all this, what John did, John means that imaginary child, he put a bunch of grapes there on the plate, which actually he had thought of dividing with his sister Alice. but then now it seemed perhaps they were irrelevant to the children, so he put them on the plate there and like relinquished. Now perhaps they were not they were impertinent to them, or they didn't want them anymore. It was like that. So he said that his grandmother loved all her grandchildren, but especially his elder brother John Lamb, and she loved him more than the others, more than anybody else, and he was as handsome as brave or courageous he was, and he was unlike the other children. Like, he wouldn't like to be confined within the house or within the garden, within the boundaries of that house. Rather, he would sort of say who would love to go on for exploits or some heroic works. He would find some good horse and sturdy strong horse, and that would take him into the county, or he would just go around half of the county on that horse. Then he would also go with the hunters for hunting things and all. So the brother has been presented as quite brave, handsome, courageous, doing different exploits, heroics. So he was such a man, like a hero-like presentation has been made of the brother here. And he says that brother loved him very much, and when he would be lame-footed, means when he had pain in his leg or some injury or something, then his brother would carry him on his back. And though Charles Lamb never responded him in that way, he never did that when his brother was lame-footed or had any pain or injury. He never did that, and he never responded his love in any of that manner. And now actually he has died. The brother actually has died. And in this story, now there is a difference actually. In this story, he is saying or mentioning that the elder brother died, but in reality the brother hadn't died. They had separated because of certain disputes among brothers. They had separated, but here in this essay he is telling us that the brother died. So he said that when he died, I didn't cry, or I didn't express any, there were no tears or so. But if it had been the case with my brother, he would definitely have missed me. So he says that though he has died only recently, but it seems that he has been died for long. And he then says that now I understand how I love him actually, and how I miss him. And at that point he realizes his love for his elder brother, that he really, and he says that how he wished that he should be with him rather than being so away from him or separated or died. He wished that he would be with Charles Lamb, and he missed the quarrels. They quarreled also at times, so he missed the quarrels. So he wanted him to be there, quarreling with him, or even feeling angry or cross with him. So he missed all those things with his brother, and he wanted him back with him. Now the children, listening all this about the brother, they didn't like it at all. They were getting bored, and so they wanted Charles Lamb to tell them something about their mother who has died. So then he starts telling them about the lady whom he loved, that is Anne Simmons. Yes. So then he tells the children about that Anne Simmons, the lady whom he loved. So when he was telling them about his beloved, so with whom he had a failed love affair, so he says that what a coyness is there in such ladies, and what denial meant for them and all such, when he was telling about the coyness, that means the shyness and the denial and all such things, and telling all this when he turned to Alice, that imaginary daughter, he felt a kind of representation of real Alice in that, and he was quite perplexed. He was like all confused that whether it was that real Alice or the daughter, who it was. He was all confused, and then soon what those two images of the children, Alice and John, started getting faint and fainter and fainter, and then it was something like a speech telling him that we are not children at all, we are not the children of Alice. And if it had been so, then Alice children or her children would call Bartram their father. Bartram, as I have written here, sorry, Bartram was the person whom she married, whom actually Charles Lamb wanted to marry. So if we were the children of Alice, then they would call, or we would call Bartram our father, and so, and we are only what dream, we are nothing, and all this happens and the children all vanish. And then in the last part there is about Lethe. The writer has mentioned about Lethe, like we are there, we are waiting on the shores of Lethe. So here actually he wants to say that the imaginary children, they were only his imagination, they were not real at all, as this thing that Lethe means actually what? We suppose there are 5 rivers in Hades, that is the underworld. So there are supposed to be 5 rivers, and Lethe is one of them. So we must wait there on the shores of Lethe, and to come over to, in reality, come over to this place. That is what it means. And he laments over the death of his brother John Lamb at the end. So the story begins on a lighter note and then ends on a tragic note. Slowly and gradually it shifts to, we can say, nostalgia, and then ultimately it comes to a tragic ending. He tells about his grandmother, then his brother, and the death of his brother, and he actually at the end he finds himself on his armchair beside his sister Mary, Bridget, as she has been mentioned in all his stories, Bridget, but the real name was Mary. So he finds himself there. So this is how he ends the essay, sitting with his sister Bridget, that is Mary, and realizing that it was only a dream. There were no children there, and it was all actually his feelings and his imaginations had come into his dream, that he wanted to marry, he wanted to have children, and that's what he dreamt here, and as presented to us in this essay. So I hope it's all clear, the essay is very much clear to you, and I'll come up with more such things, prose, poetry, everything. So stay connected, keep watching. Till then, thank you, bye bye.